Hey, Boaz here with Next Pittsburgh. We've got a very special Yinzer Backstage Pass today. You've heard this guy probably on the radio, you've seen him on TV, maybe you've heard him teach a class at the Home and Garden Show, but today we're going behind the scenes with the one, the only, Doug Oster, probably Western Pennsylvania's official gardener. I don't know if that's official yet, but we're going to see his garden. Thanks for having me.
Unofficial gardener. And my garden's a disaster, but it's my disaster.
Well, it's beautiful. I mean, we sort of walk through the woods and then we come across this gorgeous, like, cottage garden.
This used to be all vegetables in here, but since the deer have gotten so bad, I'm growing lots of flowers in here. I've got roses and lilies and hydrangeas. Everything that the deer will devour now goes into the vegetable garden. So this is a combination vegetable and flower garden. This is supposed to keep the deer out. This is like so they don't jump through. They think this is a solid thing. These come from bales of straw, these blue things. And so I'm a cheapskate, so I just keep all these to tie plants up right here, got a nice Japanese painted fern down here, but the bane of my existence is this yellow plant here. This is bamboo that somebody gave me and said, don't worry, it's not invasive. It's a clumping variety. It doesn't spread. It is beautiful, but it's so invasive. Yeah. Never, ever plant bamboo. I don't care what somebody tells you. I love growing in these.
These grow bags.
Yeah, this is called a root pouch, and it's made out of recycled water bottles. 15 gallons for me is about the smallest I want to do. Containers are like the most brilliant idea for gardeners in April and May, but they'll drive you nuts in July when you got to water them every day. These were tulips, which now this is going to be tomatoes. And every year, you rotate your crops around. That's how I plant it. I use a system called no-till. So I'm not digging. Throw compost on top of this. Throw the plants in here, and they'll kind of grow over these tulips. Every time I'm watering the tomatoes, though, I'm going to be drowning the tulips, but I don't care. Tulips are deer candy. Yeah. So they can only grow in here. So through the years, through all these beds, every spring now I get tulips popping up everywhere. And it actually is a bed. Do you see that? From Construction Junction. I'm really into kitschy stuff, but this is my flower bed, and it will be my tomato bed.
When I see you're growing golf clubs over there.
Well, that came from a story I did back when I worked with the Post-Gazette. This guy called me, and he works at a golf course, and after a year, if somebody doesn't pick up their clubs in Lost and Found, he took them home, and he was growing up his plants on them, and I just thought it was a best idea. Well, after I did the story, he said, can I come see your garden? I'm like, yeah. He brought these golf clubs, and I'm using them to support peas. And check out these peas. These peas are beautiful. Grandma said plant your peas on St. Patrick's Day. And so you got to plant your peas on St. Patrick's Day. And that's why you get peas now. One of my things is extending the season. Yeah. Gardening almost year round. This winter was tough, though, with that minus 21. But most winters, using different protections and different techniques and choosing different plants, you can grow almost all winter. And so starting in St. Patrick's Day is kind of like the start of the real planting season. But before that, you got all your spring bulbs. And then going in the other side of the season, you've got all the late blooming. And we plant vegetables again at the end of the season.
And how long have you been gardening, like, on this plot here?
We moved here 24 years ago from Ohio, and none of this was here, but some of the bones were. There's a big giant rhododendron over there, and some of these big trees were here, but I carved this out with my kids, who are now in their 30s, late 30s. Even though I've got this 30 by 40 vegetable garden, you can see I'm using a lot of containers and combining flowers. I have a friend that came one time with his wife, and he was like, what are you doing? You can't have flowers in the vegetable garden. I'm like, yeah, you have to have flowers in the vegetable garden. So everybody gardens differently. Some people have, this is my vegetable garden, this is my flower garden. And you might hate this, so you do it differently. Do it formal. Or you might find out that, wow, that is for me, because I don't want to spend all this time making it formal. I just want to have a garden, have a place to be. You do what makes you happy, and you do as much work as you want to do. That's the other thing people do. They bite off more than they can chew. They get overwhelmed, and then gardening doesn't become fun. Gardening is supposed to be fun. That's why we do it. These are actually cultivated dandelions. So these are grown from seed.
Like seed that you bought.
Mm-hmm. But they don't flower. this is like an Italian thing. My wife's Italian. I'm Italian by marriage. And so these greens are part of Italian culture. I'll tell you right now, they have a bitterness to them. That's where all the nutrients come from. Like this bitterness.
Yeah, it is. There is sort of this nice bitterness.
It pairs well with like red sauce. You know, like you do. I did these like when my kids were little pizzas with a little bit of dandelion, medium dandelion, and lots of dandelion. I'm not telling them it's dandelion. And like their kid friends came over and we did this taste test, and everybody loved the one that had the most dandelions on it. Well, this shouldn't be here. This is a tree that I put some seeds in here 2 years ago, and they finally sprouted. But it's a really cool tree. It's a native tree called pawpaw.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes this like tropical fruit. It's our only tropical. And it's like the size of a potato. It has these big seeds inside. But the flesh, to me, tastes kind of like a cross between a banana and a mango. Another funny story was that Lewis and Clark, their expedition had to subsist on pawpaws one September because they couldn't scare up game. And the thing you need to know about pawpaws is they're kind of like prunes. And so they must
laxative properties.
Yes, that must have been an interesting couple weeks with those guys. And I mean, I've got hundreds of them up in the orchard because they sucker like crazy.
Can we see your grove of pawpaw trees?
Yeah. We're gonna walk way up the woods there, though. All right, come on, let's go take a look.
You have 4 acres here, and most of them are just sort of woodland, really.
Yeah, and I've got stuff in here. You know, whenever I lose, it's a declining oak forest. I want more diversity, and so every time I lose an oak, I put something else in, something native, you know. I've got American hornbeam down there, sourwood, but just trying to put more diversity into the forest. So the main pawpaw trees are these 2 big ones, but all in here. These are all suckering from the roots from that tree.
I guess in the fall, will there be a lot of fruit here? Has there been in previous years?
Yeah, it'll be on these big ones. But yeah, this is a forest of pawpaws. Just amazing trees, you know, and they grow as an understory tree. So I love this. It's a perfect spot for them. And we see them along the riverbanks a lot, but this is like just dry shade up here, and they're doing fine.
I've never even heard of climbing hydrangea.
It is a great vine for in the shade. You know, most vines need full sun, and that one's been there a long time. And like I said, it's just a pollinator magnet, and you know that's what we're trying to do too. We're trying to help pollinators, because as gardeners, if we help pollinators, they help us. You know, they give us more flowers, more vegetables. Used to be growing zucchini was so easy, but without pollinators, people have to do hand pollination. You know, I have to teach them about the birds and the bees, male and female flower. You know, when people see my statues with no arms and no heads and stuff like that I get cheap, some of them say like, huh? They scratch their heads. But others say, it looks like ancient Rome. They get invited back. I moved in here. What's kind of funny is we kept finding statues in the woods, like little ones with their heads knocked off. And we wonder what that was all about. And so now I've continued the tradition, I guess.
So you never found out?
No, never found out what they were doing. You know, they would be buried under leaves and stuff, and you'd come across them. There are probably some still out there. But yeah, this guy, I glued his head back on, but he doesn't have any arms. But I don't know. It works for me.
Well, Doug, thanks so much for the amazing tour of your property and your garden. And yeah, I really appreciated it and learned a lot.
Gardening is so much fun if you don't get overwhelmed. That's the message. Don't get overwhelmed. Just have fun.